Welcome back to Dukascopy TV. I'm Elaine Stenson. It's day 3 of Davos, the World Economic Forum's annual event, where world leaders, politicians and celebrities gather to discuss the most pressing issues facing the world today. John Hancock from the International University here in Geneva joins me now. John, it's day 3 of Davos. What have been the highlights so far?
Well, I guess the marquee event is Prime Minister David Cameron making a speech to the assembled delegates. And I think we've seen a more confident and less defensive David Cameron than we saw last year, for example. And that's probably a function of the fact that he thinks Britain, and there's a wide consensus behind him, Britain seems to be on the road to recovery. So instead of arriving in Davos talking about the potential renegotiation of Britain's membership in the EU, the message was very different today. It was all about jobs reshoring to Britain, about the attractiveness of Britain as an investment location. Even Boris Johnson was holding forth on the possibility that the Sarkozys might be moving to London for tax reasons. I mean, if that isn't a vote of confidence in London, I don't know what is. And David Cameron making the more fundamental point that Britain belongs in Europe.
Okay, and inequality is the main issue of the event, but is there a certain irony when you have the elite of the world gathering to solve the world's problems when possibly the elite are the problem?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, you know, for a viewing audience watching the Davos events unfold, hearing about the world's richest people talking about inequality is a bit ironic. Hearing about the discussions of poverty and a luxury Swiss resort with the champagne flowing and the caviar flowing is a bit of an irony. The irony of discussing environmental responsibility while guests fly in on helicopters and private jets is a bit ironic. And you're probably right, Elaine. I mean, the biggest irony here is that we have the world's elites gathering together to solve the world's problems, and yet there's a sense out there that maybe the elites themselves are the problem.
So the reshaping of the world is the theme. Is this the elite that are actually reshaping the world today?
Well, that's actually an excellent question, Elaine. I mean, we have you know, this populist backlash against elites and this perception in so many countries around the world, and in the great democracies especially, that the elites are to blame for all our problems. I mean, even Martin Wolf of the Financial Times wrote a pretty scathing column last week, one that was widely distributed, talking about the failure of the elites and drawing parallels with what happened 100 years ago in 1914. Elites that essentially had dropped the ball and had not delivered the kind of peace and cohesion that the world expected. And he said there was going to be a popular rage expressed against elites. And I don't think he's wrong. I mean, I think there is certainly a huge sense of disenchantment with our politicians, disenchantment with our business leaders. Having said that, is it a misdirected disenchantment? I mean, is this really an exercise in searching for scapegoats? I mean, one of the things that strikes you about Davos is that although this is a self-appointed elite gathering, you know, invitation only, 2,500 of some of the richest, most influential, supposedly most talked about people in the world. Are they really the forces shaping our modern globe? I mean, it's predominantly male. I think the economists are saying less than 15% of the invited guests are women. It's predominantly North American and European. At least 2/3 of the delegates are from the old West that is supposedly in decline, less represented from Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And there's a sense that it's dominated by the old behemoths of the corporate world and the behemoths of government. That the tech startups of Silicon Valley aren't necessarily as well represented. The sense that it's a world being shaped by your generation, Elaine, the 20-somethings, Generation X, that are you know, clicking and favoriting and Tumblring and Facebooking, the social media generation, yes, that really holds the power. We tend to forget that, you know, as the elites gather in Davos and we blame them for all our problems, we're living in a highly democratized, decentralized world. Globalization in many ways is the actions of millions, if not billions, of people exercising their votes, exercising their votes through purchasing, exercising their choices through Facebook and other social media, as you suggested. So to blame Davos for the world's problem, I think, is a stretch. And to think, as it seems sometimes the Davos delegates do, that they can actually reshape the world or solve the world's problems is probably a bit of a stretch as well.
Okay. John, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you for joining us in the studio today.
Thanks for having me, Elaine.
That's it for now, but do check back for further updates and interviews from the Dukascopy TV team. Until then, bye for now.